We left off talking about supplementing in math, and I think I pretty much covered that, so I'm going to move on to another area that you can flex at home, and that is with the 40 book challenge. So with that, there is some flexibility in how you choose to keep your records. In our Schoology course, there is a folder for 40 books, and within that there are Google assignments that are different logs that your student can use to keep track that way. And if you choose to do that, you need to make sure that your student is logged into their TCA Docs account before going into that in Schoology, and then it should work great. So a lot of students, I think, are going to enjoy keeping record that way just because it's kind of fun to fill things in. But if you decide that that is too cumbersome and just really doesn't work for your family, you are welcome to keep the same information on paper, which could be either printing those out as PDFs and bringing them back and forth to conference, or if you would rather, you can use part of your Language Quest journal to keep a running log of the books that your students are reading, your student is reading, and then you would still need to keep track of the genres as well, either online or with a paper version. Then with writing, this is something that has changed this year. So because the literature units have gone away for the 40 book challenge, so did the embedded writing. Next year we're going to have excellence in writing taking that space, but this year we needed a stopgap. So what I chose to do with that was to embed in our course 2 days of the C-Track writing, which was written by our curriculum writers, and then the third day is a literature mini lesson each week. So if you take a look at that writing and you decide, you know, I really don't want to do writing that way this year, you can choose to do it differently. The only things that I would ask is that within the year you cover the 3 major components of the writing standards, which would be narrative, expository, and persuasive. So however you choose to do that is fine. Just let me know if you're going to use something different for writing. All right, and then classroom expectations. Every morning, your students will be repeating this as part of their morning meeting. They are going to be listening actively in class. They're expected to raise their hand for permission to speak, use their time wisely, and show respect to others. Other expectations include that I expect your student to be on time to class. School actually starts at 8:45 down in the gym, and by the time they come up to class, if they're not walking up the stairs with us, they're already at least 10 to 15 minutes late, which is just really not acceptable. So please make sure, I know that on the rare occasion things happen, but please make sure that your student is on time. Your student needs to come prepared. You need to give notice of absences. So if your student is sick, just let me know that. Send me a quick email that morning because the office doesn't let me know. And then if you know you're going to be out of town, please send me an email as far in advance as possible. That would be great. Also, there's an expectation that there should be communication of anything pertinent to behavior and or learning. And that goes both ways. You need to have that expectation of me as well, that if something's happening in the classroom or out on the playground that I know about regarding behavior or learning in your student, I will be sending you an email. And please don't, be worried about that because everybody has their off days. But, as a parent, I want to know those things about my student, and I'm assuming that you do too. And then, if you have information that you need to share with me about your student, please feel free to do that by shooting me an email, or at the bottom of the homeschool checkup form every week, there is a place where you can write whatever you need to tell me. So that's a good form of communication as well. I will plan to respond within 24 hours of receiving an email from you, or Monday evening if I'm contacted after hours on Friday or on the weekend. And then I think mostly this goes without saying, but please be thoughtful of others regarding illness, particularly the flu. If your student has been vomiting, they say that your student would still be contagious 48 hours after they're finished vomiting. So please just keep that in mind. We want to keep our classroom healthy this year as much as possible. Okay, a basic homeschool day. This is in your Schoology course, as well as at the beginning of the year printables on that Start Here document. So you'll see this in other places, but this is just a basic reference to give you an idea of how long each of these subjects should be taking. And if it's well outside of that for any reason, please make sure you reach out and let me know, because we need to do some adjusting there. Okay, what is new? So content that's new if you have been with Flex in the past. For math, it's pretty much the same, but Reflex is different for your fact practice. So that's been added, and I think that hopefully your student will find that to be fun. History, InfoQuest is different. We have different directions and different rubrics, and the InfoQuest is going to be changing throughout the school year. Not necessarily every unit, but it will be changing a few times throughout the year. So make sure that you're watching that history tutorial to know what to do with that, and also each unit that you pay attention to the directions. Language arts, we have the 40 book challenge. So as I mentioned before, the literature units have gone away, and in its place, your student has the goal of reading 40 books during the year within different genres. I'm not going to go into great detail because that is what the 40 book tutorial is for. But after you've watched that, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask me. There are also, each week, there's going to be a mini literature lesson. As I said, you need to be logged into your child's TCA Docs account in order to make that work, because it is a Google assignment in Schoology, and then the writing lessons, which we've talked about. I do recommend that you look ahead for the reading material that's needed for the mini lit lessons, because sometimes it's not going to be anything real difficult, but every now and then you'll need to find a resource that maybe isn't right at hand. So it's good to know a couple weeks in advance what you need to be looking for. Fix-It Grammar is new for 4th and 5th grade. In the printables for Unit 1 on the Start Here document, I did add 5th grade grammar pacing in the printables, and that was a mistake because our 4th and 5th graders are doing the same thing, and that's school-wide this year, not just for Flex. So just ignore that. It's correct in the Schoology lessons. It's just not correct on the printables. So 4th and 5th grade are both doing nose tree. All right, also navigation inside of Schoology. There's the Start Here document, which I have mentioned several times. I really encourage you to use that. It's right at the top of our course. We have printables that's also embedded in the Start Here document, and new tutorials to start the year. So please make sure that you watch those even if you are a veteran to Flex. Weekly history docs are, rather than having one lesson that you click into each day, I've put 3 lessons together, 1 per week. So that's less clicking for you and less submitting. You're just going to be submitting the homeschool checkup form once at the end of each week, and that replaces the daily rubric score submissions. You still are scoring their history every day, and you will be filling in those rubric scores, but you're only doing it once a week as opposed to 3 times. And then there's a FlexTrack Needs to Know folder that has a lot of new helpful content in it within our course, so I encourage you to take a look at that. All right, so without the calendar, we don't use the calendar like the other A-Track and B-Track classes do. So how do you know that you've covered it all? This is in the printables for both the beginning of the school year, and also it will be at the top of every unit. I really encourage you to print this out and put it in a sheet protector so that you can use it daily and weekly with your student. And this checklist will make sure that you're covering everything without forgetting anything. So it's got your math, 3 components of math that needs to be done 3 days a week, your reading 3 days a week, your lit mini lesson, and book talk, which it talks more about that in the 40 book challenge tutorial, but that's done once a week. I suggest that you do it for day 3, but you can choose however you want to. Then the other 2 days are writing lessons. Lexia or Reading Plus, depending on what your student is working on, is twice a week. You have a history assignment 3 days a week, and you're submitting that homeschool checkup form once. Spelling happens 3 days a week. Grammar happens 3 days a week. Handwriting or typing twice. And then if you have a 3rd grader and they're still working on Explode the Code, that's twice a week. And 50 states by memory for 5th graders. You can practice that however you choose, and that happens twice a week. More information about all of these things are in the tutorials. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, please don't worry. You'll be learning more about those the first 2 days of homeschool. Okay, what happens if your child is a slower worker? Here are some examples that I have learned, some tips that I've learned in the trenches over the years. It really helps to plan for the most challenging subject at the optimal time of day for your student, and I'm sure you know what that is better than I do. Often that's first thing in the morning, but not always. Try using a timer with an incentive, and your student can pick a reasonable time goal that you agree on ahead of time before they start in on that subject. And then, they get a little Dove chocolate at the end, or they get, something small as a reward if they are within that time frame. Be intentional about support. When your student is working on the most challenging subject of the day, that's not the time to go do some laundry or, I totally understand that as homeschooling moms, we need to multitask, but be careful about when you leave your student. And it is definitely important that you're there to support when it's a difficult subject for them. Break up the sessions. You can create a 5-minute brain break list when they just need a short break, and then consistency in your homeschool days from day to day will really help with that too. And then some accommodations that can be used. You can use audiobooks where your student is following word by word as they're listening. You can alternate reading pages between your student and you out loud. Your student can partially dictate for subjects other than writing. So in your InfoQuest and LanguageQuest, if they want to dictate some things to you, that's okay. That's up to you, your discretion there. And then check out the subject resource folders for ideas on how to switch it up. There's a resource folder in math and history and language arts that can help you. And when in doubt, reach out early and often when needed. We do have specialists available for reading, math, and writing. And specifically for third graders, hopefully if you have a third grader that this is very fast-paced for third graders in particular. And if your student is still on some basic foundational phonics, reading, math skills, you're going to need to do some extra supplementing at home so that they don't miss out. I don't work on those things in the classroom. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about that. Okay, accountability. I check con progress weekly for time on task and percentage of mission completed. And I'm also going to be weekly checking those homeschool checkup submissions. So please make sure that you submit on time and that you are up to date on the con time, or you will receive a friendly reminder email from me just saying that it's important that you keep up on those things. For conferences, please make sure if you have not already that you sign up in our Schoology course. It's the same day and time for every conference of the week, that is. Your student must be available to attend. They will not necessarily attend all 6. That's up to you. They can if you want them to, but absolutely they need to attend the 3 student-led conferences, which is new this year, units 2, 3, and 5. There's a script in the conferences folder online that they will need to prepare for those particular unit conferences. I collect samples unless the student is absent, so you don't need to worry about that. But you do need to make sure that you bring all your homeschool work to every conference and the reading log. All right, last but not least, workshop basics. We start at 8:45 in the gym. We're done at 3:30 each workshop day. Your student will earn flex funds, which they use for the store for various reasons, but every day they earn flex funds for being on time and walking up the stairs with us to class. We have flex in the morning, electives in the afternoon, and I send out weekly updates on Friday. If you're not receiving those, please make sure that you check with me because something must be wrong. I'm pretty consistent about those weekly updates. Volunteering, it's expected, it's just a school-wide expectation that families volunteer at least 25 hours a year. I do have math rotations most weeks, not all, Wednesdays for A-Track and Fridays for B-Track. I do have a volunteer sign up in the Flex Track Needs to Know folder. And then here are some other ways that you can earn your volunteer hours. And finally, this is for our 40-book challenge. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I'm just about out of time, but you can read through this last slide. The main thing that you need to know is that you as a parent get 4 book picks out of the 40, and that can be used anytime throughout the school year. Please, though, try to pick something that your student is going to enjoy, obviously. The 6 teacher picks will be discussed in the book club. So you'll get 1 per unit. This first unit, it's either Charlotte's Web for 3rd, Cricket in Times Square for 4th, and Black Stallion for 5th. And you just need to be done with that by the last week of the unit when we have book club. You can read it at your own pace.